has a right to defend itself. But where is that written exactly? I mean, you keep saying it as if it's a fact, a legal fact. But I don't know where that is. I don't know where to find that fact. I mean, I know where it is, where it's written that the Palestinians have a right to resist occupation, even by armed struggle. I know where that is. I can show you in your own laws where that is. But where is this so-called legal right of an occupation to defend against the legal resistance of the occupied? Where is the right to defend occupation? That's what I want to know. And don't try to tell me that Gaza is not occupied. Israel controls the borders. They control sea access. They control the airspace. They decide how much food they can even have, how much water, whether they can have fuel, whether or not they can even turn the lights on in their own homes. Israel decides all of that. They decide whether or not they have internet access. I don't know how much more occupied you can be. It's as occupied as a concentration camp. Even when Israel tries to claim that it has the right to do what they're doing in Gaza, they cite the rules around non-international conflicts, meaning they do not consider Gaza to be a separate independent territory. It's occupied territory, and they know it. And even the arguments that they use to claim that it isn't occupied territory prove that it is. So again, where is this right to defend occupation against the resistance that is legally approved by international law? Why, the moment you call resistance against occupation terrorism, and you say that occupiers have a right to defend their occupation against resistance, you are declaring yourself to be lawless. You are completely contradicting international law, your law, the law that you claim to be supreme in the world, and you declare your right to be lawless. Israel is an outlaw country, and the United States is an outlaw country. You can't talk about the rule of law unless you mean the law of the jungle. The West can't talk about the rule of law unless they mean the law of the jungle. And in that, at least they are consistent. The U.S. is consistent in its contempt for international law. Its belief in the law of the jungle is completely consistent. And there are too many examples to list. But just look at what happened just the other day. They carried out missile strikes in Syria against Iranian forces that are in Syria. Well, Iranian forces have the permission of the government to be in Syria. The Syrian government, the government in Syria that is acknowledged and recognized as the government according to international law. They have permission to be there. The United States forces don't have permission to be there. They are there illegally, according to your law. So any force that's in Syria who has the right to be in Syria also has the right to resist and to fight against the American forces who are not allowed to be there, and that's the law. But what did the U.S. say? They said that they attacked the Iranian forces in Syria in self-defense. So again, you are upholding the right of those who are breaking the law to defend themselves against those who are following and enforcing the law. It's criminal, according to your law. I can show you where the Syrians have a right in your law to fight illegally invading American forces. I can show you where the Palestinians have the right to fight Israeli occupation in your law. So can you show me where marauding American outlaw forces and Israeli occupiers have the right to defend themselves against resistance, against legal resistance? I know it's in the law of the jungle, but that's not the law that you pretend to follow. Every time you preach about the rule of law, you're not talking about the rule of the law of the jungle. Well, the White House put out a statement yesterday that said that as far as they were concerned, Israel should have no red line, no accountability, that Israel has the right to total impunity and unaccountability according to the White House. That's what you said. That's explicit rejection of international law. That's explicit rejection of the concept of the rule of law. Because like I've always said, you don't actually believe in any of the things that you claim to believe in. You believe in power and you believe in brutality, and you always have. Israel bombed that hospital, and we all know it. And if you were somehow in doubt about it, well, they bombed another one last night, and they've done it before. This isn't something that's new. You know, you've got American warships over there now, and you better be careful because they might just bomb one of your own ships just to blame it on Hamas. Because, yes, that's also something that they've done before. And if you don't know, look it up. The USS Liberty. Everyone in the world knows that the Israelis do not follow any rules of war. And we all know that the United States doesn't follow any rules of war either. Well, I don't think there's a torturer in the world who didn't learn it from you, who didn't learn it from the appropriately named School of the Americas. Look that up too if you don't know. America and its allies have a long and blood-soaked history. The United States and Europe have been like ships sailing on a sea of blood, the blood of Africa, the blood of Latin America, the blood of the Middle East, and the blood of Asia. And you even had us in the bottom of that ship rowing like galley slaves. Oh, you're nothing but pirates. Like I've said, nothing makes that clearer today than your behavior towards Gaza, your stance on Palestine. Well, I don't think that there's been a genocide that you didn't support, from Congo to California, from the Philippines to Palestine. You know, you didn't even fight the Nazis to stop the Holocaust. That was just your retroactive rationale. It wasn't the millions of Jews. It was 2,000 Marines at Pearl Harbor that got you into the war. At Pearl Harbor, a military base on yet another territory colonized by the United States. And in response to that, you carpet bombed civilians in Germany. You murdered 80,000 innocent people in an instant in Hiroshima, and another 40,000 at Nagasaki in an instant, all in so-called self-defense. Or you make up the rules as you go. You always have. And then even then, the rules that you make up on the fly, you still don't even follow those. That's because you are violent. You are violent and you believe in violence. What was that Netanyahu said? We're the people of the light, bombing women and babies, hospitals, churches, dropping white phosphorus on people to burn their skin off, blowing up entire city blocks of innocent civilians. That's the people of the light. You think that your violence is sacred. You think it's holy, sanctified atrocities. The more wanton, the more savage, the more beautiful and inspiring it is to you, because you think that the more violent you are and the more you're able to get away with that violence, the more it means that you're justified, the more it means that you are superior. And the superior always have the right to do whatever they want, don't they? No matter how sadistic it is, no matter how sadistic and how evil it is, if you can get away with it, if you can get away with being sadistic and evil, then you think it's proof of your superiority. And anyone who opposes you or expects you to follow any kind of rules is committing the ultimate crime of questioning your superiority. You're the people of the light, after all. And anyone who expects you to act like a normal, decent, law-abiding human being, they must be people of the darkness. And when you say Israel has the right to defend itself, what you're really saying is they have the right to defend their supremacy, and no one has the right to challenge it. That's what you're really saying. That's what you really mean. If you wonder why Hamas did what they did, why everything that happened since October 7th should tell you why. Because the Zionists, now I won't say the Jews, and I won't even say the Israelis, but the Zionists are fanatic, psychopathic, sadistic, racist, bloodthirsty, unholy monsters. And the Armageddon cult of the right-wing Christian Zionists are just the same. And it's a disgrace upon humanity for them to not be confronted and resisted. It's Western supremacy, colonialist, imperialist supremacy that's being confronted. That's what's being confronted in Gaza. It's Western colonialist, imperialist supremacy that's committing genocide in Gaza right now. Everyone in the world is against you. Everyone in the global south. Gaza is a microcosm of centuries of anti-colonialist struggle. The entire global south, the BRICS nations, all called for a ceasefire. The whole global south is undertaking frantic diplomacy, trying to bring peace and an end to the carnage in Gaza. And who's against that? the West, as always. America tells everyone, don't escalate. Meanwhile, they're sending warships and they're sending special forces to Israel. They say, don't escalate, while they are escalating. I'm telling you, this is a showdown now. It's a showdown. Not between Hamas and the Israelis, not between Palestine and Israel, not between the Arabs and the Jews or the Muslims and the Jews. It's a showdown between savage Western supremacy and the civilized world, because you wanted to pivot to the global South. You wanted to transition the global economy, but you're sick. You're power mad. You can't stand for anyone to be genuinely free from your control. Just like, you so-called abolished slavery in America, but you still wanted to be able to put black toddlers on leashes and send them into swamps to attract alligators for you to hunt. Never mind if those babies got devoured in the process. Yes, you did that. And you're exactly the same right now today. Anyone's freedom anywhere is a threat to your supremacy everywhere. You reserve the right to be brutal and vicious as a God-given entitlement. It's a truth that you hold to be self-evident. Every generation in the West always says that they're different. They always say that they've changed, that they're not like their forefathers. But they do all the same things all over again every time. There's no change. They've never changed. Maybe you're a Westerner now, and you're horrified by the things that your society did in the past. But you're doing the same things now, and it doesn't horrify you. You can see all those old pictures of people having picnics with their families in the American South, having sandwiches under the swinging bodies of black people who they just lynched. Maybe you see those pictures, this generation, you see those pictures, and you're bewildered at how human beings could be so brutal. But right now, tonight, you're sitting in front of the television watching CNN and eating pizza, watching a genocide take place in Gaza. But you're no better than the generations before you. You're just the same. And your great-grandchildren are going to look back on your support for Israel just the same way that you look back on pictures of lynchings and those postcards of black babies being eaten by alligators in front of tourists. And they'll disavow you and your whole generation as evil and inhuman, just like you disavow those evil and inhuman generations before you. But just like you, they will only be disavowing the previous evil to obscure the evil that they will be doing in their generation, because you never change. But by that time, inshallah bi'idhnillah, your great-grandchildren's generation won't have any power.